Hello and welcome back to my channel. And today I'm in a celebratory mood because I've made 300 subscribers. Thank you so much for your support and your comments. And whenever I get to a landmark number like this, I do a silly nostalgia video. And today I'm looking back at the board games of my youth. We used to play a lot of board games as a family. We didn't have internet and an iPad then, but we were happy. And we made our own amusement. So we used to play a lot of board games and they were great fun. I don't want to talk about the classics like Monopoly and Backgammon and Scrabble and Othello, which we used to play a lot and I loved. I want to talk about some of the more obscure games and see if anyone remembers them, see if anyone has hold of them out there or knows where I might be able to get hold of them. I'm thinking of things like Haunted House. Now, there have been various board games called Haunted House over the years. This was made in the 1970s, and we played it a lot when I was a kid, and it was great fun. So, the whole board is a haunted house, and you put up like flats, like theatre scenery, so that in the middle was a chimney, right? And down the chimney, you used to put a ball bearing, and it would come out at different random shoots and shoot across the board and knock players out of the game, right? What amused me about this game was that the people who'd made the game had marked the squares where they thought you were going to get hit by the ball bearing with a sort of red danger signal. But you never got hit by the ball bearing on those spaces. You always got hit somewhere completely different. So you thought you were safe and then you got killed by this ball bearing hitting you on the head. Kids' games were great in those days, weren't they? So I don't know who the architect of that game was, but I think they made a bit of a mistake there. Another game we used to play was Bermuda Triangle. Bermuda Triangle makes people disappear. Bermuda Triangle, don't go too near, don't go too near. You remember the song, good old Barry Manilow. But Bermuda Triangle was a great fun game, right? So you were a little ship trying to get through the Bermuda Triangle. And then on the board was this gigantic cloud. It's like this kind of weird, sort of kidney shaped cloud. And everyone had to move the cloud before they put their own move. And underneath the cloud was magnets. And each little ship that was moving along had a tiny magnet in the top. So when the cloud swung over you, it would go and your ship would disappear. And that was basically the game. And you had to try and get your. I think you was like trading things, and you were trying to get your goods to shore. But this cloud was going to just come and pick you up. Does anyone remember this game? I used to play it for hours. Another game I played for hours was Highway Robbery. Oh my god, this was one of my favourite board games when I was a kid. This was all built around the legend of Dick Turpin, the highwayman. You know, Dick Turpin was one of those figures like Francis Drake and Captain Scott that all schoolboys and schoolgirls knew about in their youth. Now, none of them know about it. Dick Turpin, who's he? Anyway, so you play. So what it is, the players play one of a variety of highwaymen, people who go and rob and pillage for a living. I love family games in the 70s. And what I really liked about this was one of the people you could play was called Matthew Flood. And Matthew Flood was an inveterate thief who got drunk on cider. Family entertainment for boys and girls. So, of course, I loved playing Matthew Flood. And then one player had to play the government, the taxmen, who roamed, who roamed the countryside, asking for tax from poor old random highwaymen. What a great family game that is, teaching you about the ills of the world. I loved it and played it for hours. Now, does anyone remember Skirid? We got bought this by my uncle, and at the time I thought it was a locally produced game. I have managed to find some photos of it online. It was kind of like Scrabble, but with numbers. So the board, instead of having letters, would have numbers everywhere, some large, some small. And each player would get a set of white, sort of clear plastic tiles, right, of different shapes, a bit like Tetris. And you'd have to place them to try and get as many numbers as you can to build up the score. Does anyone remember this? I loved this game, but I've never seen it since. I've never seen anyone talk about it. It doesn't have the fame of Scrabble. It doesn't have the fame of Othello or all these other games. What happened to Skirid? Another of my favourite games when I was a kid was War of the Daleks. I was a big Doctor Who fan when I was a child, so this was a must-have item. And it was this kind of raised board game, and it was like you were trying to get from A to B. But what happened was there was lots of little Daleks who were in positions, and you had to turn. It's a bit like that Bermuda Triangle game. You had to turn this kind of TARDIS-shaped object in the centre, and this revolved the wheel underneath the game top, so that the Daleks started moving around. And if they touched you with their little gun stick or their little sucker, then you were out of the game. Does anyone remember this? It was great fun, actually. It was a very simple game, but very charming. Finally, does anyone remember the Mastermind game? Based on the TV series. Dun, da, 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 da. I went to see Mastermind live once when I was at Leeds University. It was very funny, actually. It was very solemn. Remember how Mastermind was so serious. And then Magnus Magnusson, who was the presenter at the time, turned to us and said, "Cheer up, it's only a bloody game," which was quite funny. Anyway, Mastermind was a game that came out in the 70s, and it was the oddest game. And I was very young, and my brother and sister were quite a bit older than me, and I didn't understand what the hell was going on. You had this kind of brown board, and you had to put in different coloured pegs. Apparently, it was about breaking a code. I just watched it in absolutely what is going on. I had no idea what was happening. I couldn't play the game to save my life. Does anyone else remember Mastermind? It reminds me of, later when the Krypton Factor was on television. And those people had to sort of put different geometric objects into a pattern. I never knew what was going on. I could never work it out. I felt dumb. I was just waiting for the assault course bit. Anyway, that's my nostalgia for today. Let me know of any other board games you remember from that era that you used to play a lot. Those are my particular favourites. I'd love to hear any nostalgia stories about board games. And if you like my content, please like and subscribe.